right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is Marjorie Adams. I'm going to be leading our discussion around QuickBooks Online. We are talking about a new feature that was recently released in product. I don't know if they're doing a rollout. Sometimes QuickBooks Online will do rollouts of things. So this is Fixed Asset Manager. For people who've come from QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Enterprise has had Fixed Asset Manager for a while. We call it FAM, if you ever heard FAM, the FAM product. And so I'm going to be spending most of the time in product today, looking at what we've got, right? Learning the ins and the outs. And I know that this is something that they are continuing to improve on over at Intuit. So we just have even more things to look forward to. So here's where we're going to start out. Again, I'm going to dive in product here, but just so I can show the screen, you guys need to grab a screenshot. All of our videos are on our YouTube channel. So every week we run both a QuickBooks Enterprise and a QuickBooks Online training. It's 30 minutes, meant to be like a lunchtime. Keep on top of your QuickBooks game. And if you need to go back and watch any of those, you can do that there. Okay, but diving in product. So first of all, I do like for people to follow along with us. So if you go in and search for the QuickBooks Online test drive or sample company file, you can follow along with me as I go through this. Some of the things I've already done, but this is a great way for you to test out the product. And then once you're in that file, so the area that we're going to go down to is under accounting. They have the fixed asset area. So of course, when you log in, if you're following along, I set these three up ahead of time because I wanted to make sure that we have some data in there to look at. But again, you can follow along with as I add here. So first thing that I just want to make sure to note is when we are setting up fixed assets, we should have three different accounts that we're setting them up to in our chart of accounts. So one is our asset account. So here is an example: computers and equipment, furniture and fixtures, vehicles, land. You know, you'll see things like that, some general high-level categories. We do not suggest setting up an asset for every fixed asset you have. Okay, so just like, you know, inventory, we wouldn't set up, you know, if you sell water bottles, you wouldn't set up a chart of accounts account for every SKU. We wouldn't do that for fixed assets either. We would set up an expense account or other expense account for depreciation expenses. Generally, that all flows into one depreciation expenses account. And then accumulated depreciation, it's a contra asset. So it is an asset type of account, but it's a contra asset, right? Because it runs on a credit balance natively. It's expected to be a negative balance when you're looking at your balance sheet. Some of our customers like having one lump accumulated depreciation account. Some of our customers do like to break the accumulated depreciation out by assets. So you'll have computers and equipment, accumulated depreciation type thing. So we do have to have those accounts in the chart of accounts in order to get these set up, and you can add as you go as well. I'm going to go ahead and add an asset here. So when we add it, it pops up a screen on the side, and then we can create an asset name. So I'm going to call this MA Computer for now. And I'm going to try to get through setting up each of the different depreciation methods so you guys can see the little things, and then turn over to importing and the reporting around it. One thing that is so just to be very clear, so this is managing fixed assets. This is not managing the purchase of the asset itself, right? So you can see here, I set up touchscreen as an asset name. If I come over now to put in a bill, in some versions of QuickBooks and then also in some other software, right? When I add that item, I can now put that item as a product or service over here. So touch screen, you'd expect to see that. So now it doesn't show up on my items list. So that fixed asset list is a separate list from your items list, okay? So you would be setting up your fixed assets on your fixed asset item list, and then you would have to come over here and decide, are you going to put it to just post it against the asset account, right? So I would put it in against computers and equipment as an example. We have not, because this is so new, we have not really been able to vet the best way to go about doing this, but I don't think it's going to be best practice to add it as an item and add it as a fixed asset on the fixed asset list. So for today, my suggestion is to, when you purchase it, just put it to computers and equipment, and then in the description, link it, right, by saying fixed asset manager, touchscreen, and then you probably want to have some specific numbers or ways to identify this touchscreen so that you can kind of cross-reference against it, okay? So when you buy the fixed asset, when the asset value is going to be going up, you're doing that through a purchase type transaction. That purchase type transaction is not related to this fixed asset manager list for now. Okay. This is shouldn't be that big of a deal. In QuickBooks Desktop in their fixed asset management product, you would add the item, it would be on the items list, and then you would buy the item. So you still would have to go in and put in the bill to purchase the item, and people didn't like that either. But they didn't like it because it made their items list long, right? Because you have to put in a new fixed asset item for every single one. So it would make that list longer. All right. So when I add the asset over here, I am not putting in, this is not creating a transaction. There is no, when I add this asset, I am not doing any debits and credits. Okay. So again, MA, computer, I can put in a description, all the fun things. Down below here, I have, well, first of all, I always like making sure you understand what's happening. So they do have give feedback, which is wonderful. So if you guys have any feedback, give that feedback, please. Over here, you do have the schedule, which we'll get to that in a second. I just didn't want to bypass it, but of course you can't see the schedule until we put in some of the information down below. So the purchase price of this item, I'm going to put it in at $5,000. It's a really nice computer. You do have the ability to put in the salvage value, right? The salvage value would be what you expect the value would be when you're going to get rid of it, but you don't have to fill that in. That's not a required field. I don't have very many people putting that in ahead of time, but it could matter because it'll affect, like as an example, let me show you. I have the math on the screen. So in the straight line depreciation, it's taking the purchase price minus the salvage divided by the useful life, okay? So again, if I had put in a salvage value of $1,000, instead of it depreciating $5,000, it's only going to depreciate $4,000 for me. I'll leave that there so you can see. Okay, the next thing is the depreciation start date. So this matters because of the schedule, and this also matters because there's some things you cannot get past if you put this date in the past. So by putting a date, so I'm just going to back it up by 2 years. By putting a date in the past over here, it will not go back and post depreciation backwards for me. It will only calculate it, right? Because it's going to calculate the schedule going backwards, but it won't go back and post that backwards depreciation for me in the system. The assumption is that you've already calculated the depreciation and posted it at this. Now the depreciation method in here, what you would have is you have 3 different options. Straight line, which is again just, if I go back in there, is divided by useful life. You have double declining, which is, you know, times 20% times 2 divided by 12. And then you have 150%, which is times 20% times 150% divided by 12, right? Type thing. And we'll look at each of these. But I'm going to go ahead and pick straight line because that math is the easiest to follow. I'm going to put in a useful life of 4 years because then we have more simple math here. I guess it really doesn't matter. I'll put in 5 years. And then you put in the accumulated depreciation amount. So the expectation, of course, with this field would be that you have fixed assets tracked somewhere, or you have a report from your CPA that has given you what the accumulated depreciation on this asset is, and then you would put that in there. So it's, oh, my CPA told me $500. I'll show you in a second how that works. So the asset account, we already talked about that. I'm going to put it in computers and equipment. The depreciation account, I'm going to scroll down here. We have it in other expenses. And then accumulated depreciation, again, is a contra asset account. So it is a fixed asset type. Okay. And when I hit save, it gives me an error, because it went through and it did the calculation of the schedule, and it told me you're wrong. You should not have calculated $1,500 or $500 of depreciation accumulated. You should have $1,533.41. Now, I can not bypass this, I don't think. I haven't figured out a way to bypass this yet, and so I am giving feedback on that directly with the developers. But I haven't been able to figure out how to bypass that yet, to just say, like, okay, just use the amount that I'm telling you. Just use the amount that I'm telling you, please. So a way, right, to possibly bypass that would be something like in the asset name, we put in MA computer, setup or something. So we're saying we're setting up the fixed asset, and then maybe in the description we can put original purchase price. I can't spell original. Oh, original. There we go. Original purchase price, 5,000. Right. So I'm keeping track of the original purchase price, but then I am going in here and modifying these so that it'll fall in line with, what it's supposed to be doing going forward. So you kind of have to back into some numbers possibly. But for now, you have to tie out to what the system says you should have. Now, in a go forward, right, if this was a brand new computer I was buying today, that should not be an issue for us. We bought it for $5,000, perfect. It's just if you're setting up historical that you could run into that as a problem. Once I hit 1533.41, it lets me progress. And then it can show me the schedule over here. So you can see it takes that 5,000. And I already forgot, what did I do? So 5,000 minus 1,000, if I do the math just quickly down here, minus 1,000, right, is 4,000 divided by 5 divided by 12. What did I do? Oh, I did the math. So let me do this. 4,000 divided by 5 divided by 12 is the 66.67, which is the number that we see them saying we should be taking out every single month. Okay. All right, so that is straight line. Let me go ahead and add an asset, computer 2, and I'm going to do the double declining. So again, purchase price of 5,000. I'm going to put in the salvage value of 1,000. Depreciation, here's 21. We're going to do double declining, life of 5 years. I don't know this amount off the top of my head, so I'm just going to throw in a number and let them tell me. Come in here to our computer and equipment asset, depreciation, and accumulated depreciation down here. Now, I'm just going to tell you this is going to error out is what I figured out, but let me try it and see if it doesn't. Oh, look at that. Look at, Well, it worked this time. That's good. Before, when I put in a salvage value, it was not working for me earlier, like literally 15 minutes. I retested it before this webinar, but maybe they had already fixed that part. Because it was on double declining, I couldn't put in a salvage value, it just wouldn't work. So it looks like that is updated. That is fantastic. But if I come in here, then I let it do the calculation, right? It's saying I should have accumulated depreciation of 31,004. I can say save, and then it will give me the schedule. Okay. So for the double declining, the math, right, is the value, and it takes a value every year, times 20% divided by 12. times 2, right, for year 1, because it's double. We're taking the straight line and doubling it, basically. Okay, then we have the same thing for the 150% accelerated, so you guys can go through and do that and test setting that up and see how it works. So on there, I did say it doesn't work with salvage value for now, but maybe maybe they saw all my errors come in yesterday and today and got it fixed already. I know that they are very actively working on this and taking in improvements. Let me see. There is a question. Does QuickBooks Online have sales order capability yet? Not yet, Willie. We are talking some about that. So fulfillment is not a thing per se in QuickBooks Online yet. If you put in an older fixed asset that is still depreciating, will it calculate and post the depreciation for the current year? So yes. So Marsha, at the point, so if I put mine in, the depreciation gets posted on, I think that they said the first of the month. It's first of the month or last month, but the depreciation gets posted automatically. So if I put it in today, it would post September's depreciation would be the first time it posted. Okay. Now, again, this feature was released about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. So we haven't seen that happen yet. So we might have some follow-ups from that, but that's what's supposed to be happening. That's why I said I'm not sure, because I can't move the calendar ahead yet. I can't pretend it's September already. So I haven't seen it yet. Okay. My suggestion, though, would be to go in and test, set one up. Go ahead and set one up, test it. We can come in here and delete. If we need to, and go delete the transactions. I'm also curious to see, like if I look at view here, I'm also curious to see if we'll be able to link to the transactions from here, right? Like the depreciation will be blue and highlighted, and I can click into it and see the journal entry that happened. That would be really cool. Okay, moving along. Getting through a lot faster than expected. Okay, so in here in our screen, when we're looking at our fixed asset menu here, you do have the ability to filter. So I can filter by a particular asset account. So I can say, just show me everything in computers and equipment. And then you can also say, show me things that I bought last quarter, this year, etc. So it says date in here. And my assumption is that's created or purchased date. So if I say, last 365 days, right, then nothing shows up because I bought everything 2 years ago. So if I add in till 2021 and apply, then all of them are showing up in there. So probably depreciation start date. Then also we have the gear over here, so you can choose which fields you see. Okay. You can add in the category there from the item, the account, useful life, current value, etc. Okay. We do have the ability to add multiple assets. So it looks like an Excel spreadsheet up here. You do have the ability to customize columns. So asset name, description. If you need to get rid of anything, you could remove it, right? Uncheck it. And then if you needed to move columns around, you can grab these little dots on the side and move the columns around. Also, they have the action up here for create and update, which is nice. Okay, so you can put those in. I was going to fill it in here and show you guys, but you get the idea. We're running out of time. So we do have the ability to import if we need to import. One of the things that was a takeaway from us showing some customers already, though, is that on this screen, we don't have the ability to export to do tie-outs, right? To be able to make sure that the import worked and so I'm assuming that that is something that is coming. Okay. Again, when I put this in, all of these items in here, if I go look at my chart of accounts, and I come down here to computers and equipment, you can see I don't have anything in computers and equipment yet because I set them up on the fixed asset list, but I have not technically purchased them yet. Again, if we were setting up beginning balances, which we talk about so much, most likely this is going to be some lump sum journal entry, right, pulled from our trial balance. And then what we would want to do is we would want to tie that out to what it shows in our both the accumulated depreciation and the fixed asset value, or the purchase price of the fixed assets, right? We'd want to tie that out to a report. Okay. All right, speaking of reports, let's go on over here and see. So there is one report so far that is utilizing the fixed assets. With this report as well, what we have uncovered is that you cannot, there's no export yet. Again, the tie out to the balance sheet or tie out period, right, to the old system that we were trying to, so whenever we do new file setups, we always do tie outs, right? So we export it, and so you can't export this this report either. I think there's no drop-down export like other reports in here. We do have filters, right? Depreciate, filter for when, and then they have all the fields that you can, operations creator. So it's using the higher level reporting, which is wonderful. Okay. And then also you have additional that you can add down below. And then, of course, we can customize the columns, same as with some of the other reports, right? So I can make it drag and drop, right? So I can and notice, because it's live updating. So if you have lots of rows of data, that could be a little bit painful to start moving things around the first time. You can also choose not to see something, right? So you need to leave it on the report if you're going to filter by it, but you can choose not to show it on the report by clicking this little I. So if I didn't care about the accumulated depreciation account, I would hit this I, and then it comes off of my report, right? So I don't see it on my report, but the filter here, I would still be able to choose that field. Okay. So it has to be one of the columns in order to do filters by it, but you don't necessarily have to show it on the report. Okay. So pretty basic so far, but a huge step forward. I think one of the biggest requests that we get is how are we going to do fixed assets? How are we going to manage fixed assets on top of QuickBooks Online? And for our team, the answer was, we have to go to an app if you're going to use QuickBooks Online, or of course we can use QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise, which has the fixed asset manager as well. And let me see. Let me see some of the questions that are coming in. How to use the chart of accounts? Okay, so how to use the chart of accounts versus the fixed asset item list. So I kind of covered this a little bit, but the chart of accounts, when we're talking chart of accounts should always be the higher level buckets, and then you get the details somewhere else, right? So we should have computer and equipment, furniture and fixtures, land, improvements maybe, buildings, some high level categories on the chart of accounts. And then when we purchase the computer, we put it in as a bill or a check or an expense, whatever it is, against that chart of accounts account, okay? And those do not relate to when I go in and set up my fixed assets. They do not relate. I can mess up and say computer 5,000 and then put in 5,500 when I purchase it, which is why the tying out is incredibly important. Okay. And so, yeah, so Terry, then I would definitely the fixed asset items list is where you put the individual assets. I don't suggest putting each individual asset also on the chart of accounts, because chart of accounts should be higher level. Chart of accounts should be the highest level, right? The most simple. Use the other reports to dive into the details. Okay, and then we have another question here. Do you need to have, so yeah, my understanding is that you, my understanding is that you have to have access to QuickBooks Online Advanced to have the fixed assets. But with anything into it, you know, sometimes they change their minds. They want more people to use it, you know. But my understanding is that's meant to be in QuickBooks Online Advanced. Okay, so a question around how do I go backwards, because the chart of accounts has detailed. So in the chart of accounts, you can merge accounts together. You can merge accounts together, right? And so it'll take the total. Go into my chart of accounts. Nope, chart of accounts. It'll take the total, right? So if I merged, I wouldn't do that, but okay, let's say we're going to merge Board of Equalization payable and loan payable somehow because we needed to. You could merge those two together, and then the new total will be $4,370.94. Of course, in QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can also do a backup. So if you're doing any cleanup and merging, please make sure that you have QuickBooks Online Advanced and doing backup so that you can, because there is no undo. So just be careful, or call us first. Okay, D. How do you fix the beginning balance when you are reconciling an account? Jillian, I'm not sure if I'm following. Is that a bank account? I did do. Here, let me find it real quick. I did do a webinar on troubleshooting bank account reconciliations. So if you go to our YouTube channel, it's just youtube.com/Fourlane. We have a Fourlane. We do have a video from a couple weeks ago on, so if you guys are in YouTube, right, they have playlists. And if you go to the playlist, there should be a QuickBooks Online QBO training playlist. You can see all of those. And then there is one in here around troubleshooting bank reconciliation from a couple months ago. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. This is the first time I think I've ever finished early in the QBO one, so yay. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes back. Next week, unless something pops up again, which I actually think that there is a new feature popping up, I'm asking for permission to show it to you all next week. Can't talk about it yet. How's that for a teaser? Can't talk about it yet because I haven't been given permission to talk about it, but it is rolled out in a couple of instances. So I'm asking for permission to present on it next week. Hopefully we'll see that. Otherwise, it'll be in a couple weeks. But we will continue down some of our reports. We will talk about prepaid. Somebody asked me about prepaid expenses, if they're going to roll out an automation of prepaid expenses, and I can't answer that. But we will show you how to handle prepaid expenses in your accounting file with the way it's set up right now. And I will hang out here for a minute to see if there's any additional questions. But I thank you guys for your time. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Have a great day. Nicole says accounting doesn't show up on the column of shortcuts. Are you in the advanced? Are you in advanced? QuickBooks Online Advanced. And if you want to test it, again, just Google QuickBooks Online sample file. This will come up and you can test drive it. Becky, I'm not sure on that one. If you want to shoot me an email too, I can try to. I was trying to save a credit and actually put it in the wrong number. How do I delete it? You can't find it. I mean, there is an audit trail. So you could go into your reports and go to audit log. Maybe that would help you, right? You can filter and say, show me, transactions this month. I'm not sure. We can help you if you need help. Okay. Hope everybody took away something. Let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover in the future, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks, guys.